Hello once again, it's Mr. Pete, your internet shop teacher. Welcome to episode number 68 of my This and That series. Haven't made one in quite a while. I'm fresh back from Florida at the Florida Flywheelers, a very long 3,000 mile trip. It really wore me out. I lost a lot of weight. I hope I can recover from that. But there'll be a separate video on that. I don't have a whole lot of footage, but I do have some still pictures of that, and probably more coming in. Thank you to Dave Zager at KBC Tools for sending me a couple of these caps. I wore out the other ones. And before I get started here, and this is kind of unrelated, and I'm not paid to say this, but probably the finest soda you can buy here is the IBC, I almost said KBC, IBC cream soda made with real cane sugar, not that phony corn sweetener, and I'm living here in corn country, but that corn sweetener is horrible stuff. Nothing like the flavor of a real cane sugar. You've got to go to some distance to find this. I find it at Walmart about 40 miles from here, and I buy 10 4-packs. All right. That was unrelated. Let's get on with a bunch of things that I want to tell you. Most of you know that I have been selling on PeteBay, and the date today is March 6th, so pay no attention to the actual content here, but I'm selling groups of 20, so watch for those videos as they appear. But the subject came up here, as I'm trying to get rid of all of my stuff, some of my stuff, that am I a hoarder, am I an accumulator, or am I a collector? So here is the definitive answer provided by viewers. Well, people have told me I am definitely not a hoarder, and that's quite a relief. And the definition of a hoarder, and hoarders are mentally ill or have mental quirks because they won't get rid of anything. Pizza boxes, cereal boxes, old newspapers, they just don't get rid of anything. You cannot walk in their houses. I have been in houses like that, and mine is not like that, although it's not great. Am I a collector? So I'm not a hoarder. Am I a collector? Well, here's a little collection here, but not really, I guess. Am I a collector? However, about 25 years ago, I collected a lot of woodworking planes, and I had those all categorized and numbered, and I had a tag on everything. So to that extent, I was a collector of planes. I got rid of all of those planes as they became a burden. Here is a little example of a collection that I still have. It is like a shadow box. It never did make it to my wall. I was going to fasten everything in here so I could hang it up, but you can just see it's a hodgepodge of smaller tools. So we would call this a collection. So what I found out that I am, and I'm guilty as charged, I am an accumulator. I have accumulated vast quantities of tools, often duplicates, multiples of items, and that's why I'm selling some of them. But it has been a lot of fun, and any money that I do raise in my PeteBay is, it's going to get revolved, let's face it. But I am trying to minimize things here to make it easy on my kids when my body assumes room temperature. So that's the difference between accumulator, a hoarder, and a collector. And I believe those are accurate definitions. What are you? Last year, in an episode of This and That, I talked about the Osso test road near Ottawa, Illinois, and many people recognize that site, even if they were out of state. They've gone by it and they always wondered. Well, I got this book called Back to the 50s in the Illinois Valley. So I live in the Illinois Valley. That's the Illinois River Valley. So this is an interesting book, and there's quite a nice article in here about that. There's the ISBN number if anybody is interested. This is signed by the author, but there's quite a lengthy article in here about that. Now I can't show you that because this is copyrighted, but there are a bunch of pictures here that I'm sure are not copyrighted because these would be government pictures of building the road and so on. So I'm going to show those at the end of the video for those that are interested. And the author of this book is a local man here, R.G. Bloomer, and he signed the book for me. John DeRosa sent me pictures of a cable cutter, and this one's really beat up, but notice that it says Morse, Oakland, and on this side it says Sterrett, California. So we were trying to determine if this cable cutter, it's really beat up, was made by Sterrett Tool Company, but I kind of doubt it. I don't think they ever made things like that. Or was it a partnership with another company? Let me know if you know. I just looked up on the internet to see if there was a town of Sterrett, California, and I could not find it, so this remains an unknown. Let me know. John Geis sent me several pictures, and here's the blueprints. There's a lot more copies or pages of this, but I couldn't seem to print them out or show them properly. But I think I heard of this O'Keefe Casting Company before. These were school projects, and they're beautiful drawings, nicely dimensioned and easy to read. And there's what the castings look like. Unmachined yet, after all these years. Thank you so much to my good friends in Louisiana, Don and Ruth Snyder, and you might have remembered this from last year when Don, and I'll show you a picture here in a minute of Don and I, if I can find it, a huge can, I mean this is quite a large can here, I don't know what it weighs, full of pecan divinity. Don is the candy maker, and it's absolutely delicious, chocked full of pecans, and you know, it's very hard to make divinity. It's not like making some of that chocolate fudge. It's very subject to failure. So I hope this fattens me up a little bit. And speaking of pecans, I just got this bag from, and that's the brand, B&B, out of Alabama. I was just in Alabama. Those pecan groves are just beautiful. But my friend Dale from down in Metamora, he's an electrician. You might remember he helped me do some wiring, but he sent me 4 nice bags of shelled pecans, and I just love these. They're great in baking, although my wife doesn't bake anymore, but they're good on ice cream, and they're really good if you roast them and put a little butter on them. So thank you, Dale, and your boy. They visited me here a few weeks back and brought these wonderful pecans. Do you remember recently when Tim Miller sent me all of these collets, and they were triple packed, and at that time I made a comment about him, a real interesting man, that he's so thorough that he wears suspenders and a belt and an elasticized waistband. Well, shortly after seeing that video, he sent me this picture of himself, and he's a volunteer fireman, and there he is wearing suspenders and a belt. Thanks, Tim. I'm sorry, but I do not remember the name of the man who sent me this article and these pictures on the coal drill. Now, I had one of these I picked up in an auction for $1. I never did know what it was or what it was used for. Here's another picture of it. And what I ended up doing, it had a beautiful Jacob chuck on it. I bought it for the chuck. So I took the chuck off, and I don't know what I did with the rest of the item, but it's kind of a hand type of drill press that you clamp to the work. You got a ratchet handle, you got like a feed mechanism, and it's just allows you to drill big holes where you really couldn't do that with a hand drill of any kind. And there's an article here as well with all different uses for it on the farm. I just found his name, Matt Mitchok from North Carolina. Thanks, Matt. It's the combination tool of 1,000 uses. Did you watch my recent video when I talked about the Royal Collet Closer, both the hand wheel type and the lever type? Well, Jay Miller from Texas sent me this picture from Royal in great detail on all the various parts, and this is the part that was really a bugger, very hard to find for a closing lathe. However, they made these for just about every kind of lathe that you can think of, so all the different specs and so on are on this sheet. Somebody asked me about this in an email, I don't remember who it was, and wanted some of this information. Well, this is kind of funny. A man by the name of Paul St. Marie, who I have been in contact with many times, and thank you ever so much, Paul, for this, he said, watch for a package from Zorro. Well, I thought he was joking, and it was the mark of Zorro, you know, the guy with a sword and all of that. And so in a couple days, here comes this package, and it's not Zorro the sword fighter. It's and it's spelled different, I think, and I found out that this is a subsidiary of Granger, so I don't understand that. But anyway, Paul had been watching my video where I talked about phase converters and how I needed some plugs, twist lock type plugs. So he sent me $200 worth, and I won't unbox all of these, of the twist lock plug. And if you ever price these, you'll know what I'm talking about. These are for 3-phase, so there are 2 male and 2 female of those, and then several of this type. So when the weather warms up, I'm going to install these on the phase converter out in the garage so that one goes to my closing milling machine and one goes to my South Bend mill, so I can quickly disconnect them, take them apart if I have to move anything. So again, thank you, Paul. This represents a lot of money, and I think you all know that this Hubble brand is one of the premier brands in electrical products. I had priced these like at Menards, well, 6 months ago. I thought, I can't afford that, and that's why I wired everything direct. Here's a little bit of information that is totally unrelated, but some of you might find it interesting, so I'll call this extra credit. This is the owner's manual, 85 pages, from 1960 for the Jeep 150 forward control. We called them a cab forward. I was a senior in high school when this came out, and they made these in 2 different lengths, but there is no vehicle in the world that I wanted more than one of these when I was 16. A neighbor had one with a snowplow on, and I just was in love with it. So this is the closest I ever got to one. But really what I want to show you here is the difference between an owner's manual today and yesterday. So in this manual, besides showing you how the controls work and the heater and the radio and all that baloney, there is breakdowns of the front axle, the rear axle. It's 4-wheel drive, you know. I think they came in 2-wheel drive too. There is a wiring diagram and the clutch. So in other words, it's almost a repair manual. Not totally, but somewhat. There's pictures of engines in here, cutaways and all of, there it is. So, you know, this is just extremely interesting to me and probably to some of you, even if you're never going to overhaul one. Now let's take a look at the manuals that came with my RAV4 hybrid that I bought last year. Notice that this is still unwrapped. And these books have nothing to do with repair. You can't repair these vehicles, but the maintenance and warranty here is thicker than the Jeep book. And it's totally worthless. Well, here's another one. Owner's warranty rights. Well, they wrote the book. You know they gave you no rights. I shouldn't be so. Yeah. But this is the book that really matters here. It's the quick reference, just telling you how to use the car. Certainly no repairs, but if you want more detail on how the heater works and how to tune in the radio and all that, you would have to break the seal and read this 300-page book, and most cars do not even come with a manual anymore. They're online. So let me know if you thought that this little bit here was interesting. Notice the difference in thickness. What a waste of paper. I know some of you are sick of my stories, but I went to the Chicago Auto Show 2 weeks ago in February 2022, and here I am as I come into the Great Hall. We had just parked the car, and then you could pay for parking right there in some kind of machine. It looked like an ATM. And from a distance, I told my buddy Dwight, I was traveling with Dwight, you know, my lifelong buddy I talk about all the time. I said, I'll catch the parking. And it looked like it was $2.50 because I'm standing quite a ways away and I can't see anything anyway. So I get a little closer. It's $25. You heard me. $25 to park the car, but since the dollar's only worth a dime, I guess it was $2.50. So anyway, corruption started almost instantly. So I'm hungry, and I said to Dwight, you know, let's go over and get a Dunkin' Donut. So I said to this guy, give me a 1 glazed donut, and he said that'll be $2.50. So he gave it to me, and I got the money out, and he says, can't you pay with a card? I said, I don't have a card. Actually, I lied, but I'm not paying for a donut with a card. That's the stupidest thing I ever heard. He said, well then, just put the money in that bucket. So there's a bucket right there. Can you see it? And so I said, oh, thanks. How much? And he says, $2. Now it's $2. But I put in another $1 for a tip, see? So then I'm going over and I'm eating a donut, and Dwight comes over and he says to me, you know that man just gave you that donut, don't you? I'm there, what? Yeah, he stole the donut from his employer and had you put the money in that tip jar. You know, I'm so naive, I don't get that. Well, and he ended up doing the same thing. And then here's the frosting on the cake. That donut was so stale and so old, I ate about half of it because I was hungry and immediately threw it away. So here I am in McCormick Place in Chicago, screwed and eating stolen merchandise within minutes after I'm there. And I'm not done. So come noon, I'm kind of hungry, so in order to eat, you had to show your vaccination card. By the way, everybody was wearing a mask. You had to have a mask to get in. But of course, I immediately took mine off, as did about 10% of the people. But in order to eat, you had to show your vaccination card to that lady. Here are different people doing that. And I thought, this just reeks of Nazi Germany, where a man in riding boots carrying a riding crop would say, your papers, please? So I was shocked at that, and I'm still not done. So I had, it was $14 for this pulled pork sandwich, and it was fairly good, except, cheated again, it was yesterday's bun. And here's another thing I noticed about these auto shows, is I'm interested in electric cars and all the technology, really. So I'm looking at the brand new Silverado electric truck, be over 100 grand, but it still was a prototype. They didn't really have an actual one there. So I'm asking the guy, all right, what powers the heater? How do you heat it? I said, is it a resistor or like a heat pump? And he says, I don't know. Ask that guy over there. So I have, and that was a man, but I have found out that at the auto show, mainly they have real pretty women, and they don't know anything. Nothing against their gender, but they're just models. So they all carry a tablet with them so they can look things up. But they are absolutely clueless unless they're on a script. Some of them are up on a stage and they have a script, and then they're quite good at that. But they have no knowledge whatsoever of automobiles. Okay, here's another irrelevancy for you. I just got back from Florida and I spent a lot of time down there with my buddy Clark Easterling. You know, he runs Windy Hill Foundry. We had a great time. What a nice guy, him and Josie, his wife. But anyway, so on the way back, I passed by one of his semis. So he's grown so big time now that he has his own fleet of semis to haul his cast iron castings. As usual, I simply must end with a long rant. I have talked many times in my other videos about how corrupt the state of Illinois is. And this isn't really political, this is factual. So hang on. And I talked a lot about how crooked our governors were and how about 4 or more had been in jail. And just everything about it reeks of corruption. Well, if you watch the national news this week, and especially the Chicago news, our wonderful Mike Madigan, now retired, but he was a career politician, and he was the Speaker of the House or something like that in Springfield his whole life. And they never could pin anything against him, but now he's got major charges against him for bribery and I don't know what all the charges are, but he'll go to court next week. And that just gives you a little example of what's going on here, that somebody could get reelected year after year after year and be as crooked as the day is long. So I do hope he gets to go to jail, but I doubt it, because he'll have the very best lawyers in the world, and he probably has millions of dollars to spend on that. But he is my age. He's like 79, so he would definitely die of old age before he went to jail. And they will have pity on him if he was convicted, but I doubt it very much. I hope that you don't find that too terribly offensive, but this is the truth that I'm talking about. But it took 40 years for them to catch up with him. So this is Mr. Pete saying so long for now. See you next time.